right. Great. Well, Bob Feinstein and Tim Walzak mentioned they cannot make it tonight. And we may have another guest joining us, but welcome everyone. Welcome especially to our newest member, Phil Persiello, and to our guest, Susan Olson. Here's Katie. I'll let her audio connect. Hello, Katie. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Yourself?
I'm good, thank you.
Great. So thanks for joining us. We're just getting started with introductions. Phil, I apologize because we had gotten notice that you were you had been approved as a member, and then the world sort of ended, and we did get back together, and I think we just forgot to add you to the email list. So I think there is a meeting that you have missed, but we're thrilled to have you. Tell us, a little about your background and why you'd want to join the Clean Energy Task Force.
Absolutely. So I am Phil Persiello. I've lived here in town for about 6 years. I had grown up in Monroe, Connecticut, so I've been in Connecticut my entire life. I served in the military for 6 years, and upon honorable discharge, I moved back up to Connecticut. In between that period, I went back to school leveraging my GI Bill and earned my master's in public administration and another in communications. And I've served different roles for the town, including on the Board of Selectmen and the Conservation Commission. I've also served professional roles in both the private sector as well as the public sector, and that spanned communications roles as well as traditional project management roles. And then most recently, I'm a product owner for certain capability at Travelers Insurance. And on the side, I think my main passion and one of my biggest ambitions is doing what I can to crack away at this colossal climate chaos that we're up against. And there's a lot of ways we can do that, personally, and I've done a lot of those things. And now I'm looking for broader opportunities and horizons to have a greater impact on public policy and how we think about clean energy here in town, in Simsbury.
Great. Well, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
So we're in public audience, so that means that really anyone can speak. So I would invite Katie, if you'd like to say any words, introduce yourself. I know. What I can say is Eric Wellman put me in touch with Katie, and we had a great conversation, and already have some ideas about the way you can help. But if you'd like to add anything, Katie, now is the time where you can do that.
Oh, sure. I just wanted to thank the group for including me. I guess I'll add that I also work at Travelers, so there's another connection there. This is a passion of mine probably for a long time. My father dubbed me the tree hugger since I was in high school. And, being a parent, being a practicing Catholic under this Pope who has challenged the faithful community to protect creation, not only for our personal selves, but for others. What way can I extend myself to protect creation for all? So that's kind of my driving force behind my passion. And Mark and I had talked about ways that we could potentially engage the schools and what I could do to help. I have a second grader and a sixth grader, and would like to see more climate education starting from a younger generation, because it really the effects are yet to be felt, and it will certainly impact them more than us.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you for reaching out to Eric and for joining us. Technically, I think we don't have an opening on on the task force right now. I think we are full. We can confirm that. I'm pretty sure that's the case. But there's nothing at all to prevent you from being active and being volunteer and coming to meetings. And technically, we have to channel your comments into the public comment section, but I think that's not that's a very, very surmountable obstacle. So yeah, we had, with with some of the things you just touched on, we should maybe talk about reaching out to the schools, to the boards, to the PTOs. Particularly, we have this draft energy plan that we've done that we started to get around, make the rounds and present it to the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed and the Economic Development Commission, but we did not really get around to the PTOs. So that might be an interesting thing for us to do together. Great, Susan. Any public comment?
No, I'm here mostly to listen.
Great. Well, you have made valuable contributions to our last 2 meetings, at least. So, and that is, I think, early in our agenda. Have people, while we're talking, have people had a chance to open up the August minutes and see them, or should we table the approval?
I haven't, but I don't know that I know how to access them.
Do we have a quorum, right?
We do have a quorum, yes.
Yeah,
We're 4.
we have 4 of
Does,
them.
do you want to read them or just have everybody look at them and approve them?
Well, only Ray and Mark and Sherry and me can do it, right? So the question is, have you read it?
Phil can't vote on the minutes.
Yeah, and nobody else can vote on it because they weren't there. So
Sherry and Tim and I can vote on them. Sherry, Mike and I can vote on them.
right, but Ray is Tom's. Ray's at every meeting, and he's Tom's surrogate, or whatever you want to call it. So I always count him in, unfortunately. So.
But he can't. I don't think he can vote.
I don't think Tom and I can vote because we're we're attached to the committee, but we're not committee members.
Right.
Right. So
really
he doesn't count.
That's fine.
I'm skimming them now. They look good.
Yeah, we put in the comments that came back to the draft that I sent out earlier.
I mean, I'm okay with the minutes.
Yep, me too. So I'll move that we approve the minutes of the August 17th meeting.
I'll second it.
And any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Thanks again, Mike. So the next on the agenda is these really substantive topics that maybe one other comment. This is because we had to move the meeting from Monday to Wednesday. This is now a special meeting, but we can still vote on everything. I think the only thing we can't do at a special meeting is add items to the agenda. So we need to stick to the agenda. But I think we've got enough in the agenda to keep us busy for a while. So there were at least 2 substantive topics that came up from our guests from Citizens Climate Lobby. And one of them is this carbon fee and dividend or carbon tax. And the other is the possible declaration of a climate emergency. Now, we don't have Tim and Bob, so let's have a little discussion. I know Bob often, in particular, is particularly knowledgeable about these things, so we may want to not make a final decision, but let's start the discussion, because I think we really just listened at the last 2 meetings. We didn't really have any chance to talk, but let's start with the carbon dividend. So the basic idea is that right now we don't pay for all of the products and services and activities that we engage in. We don't really pay the true environmental cost. Whereas if you put a price on carbon, then activities and products that are more carbon intensive are going to inherently be more expensive. So the whole incentives shift towards things that are low carbon, better for the environment. So conceptually, I'm very supportive of this idea. I think the question before us, or the ask, if I'm not mistaken, was would the Clean Energy Task Force endorse this piece of legislation, that federal legislation that would implement this carbon fee and dividend? Does anybody have any thoughts?
Now, can I ask Susan a question, or does this have to be between just us? Or maybe you can answer it, Mark.
Yeah,
I'll pose the question.
I believe our guests should only be speaking during the public audience, and then at
public
the end,
audience.
there's open forum.
Okay. Maybe this was brought up during the presentation, but what is the benefit of declaring a climate emergency? Does it kick in federal dollars? Does it create something tangible for the initiative?
So the climate emergency is actually the next topic we're going to talk about. This is the carbon fee and dividend. They're certainly related, but and we're doing them kind of in reverse order because I think Susan and her crew did present the whole climate emergency first. But so the idea of the carbon fee and dividend. I mean, my thoughts are, it's a really worthwhile piece of legislation. I know I've had a chance to have this discussion with Susan in a different context, and her crew. My only question is it appropriate and the right thing for us to be endorsing federal legislation? My fear a little bit is what we could possibly do, I think, is recommend it to the Board of Selectmen, as we did on community choice aggregation. Certainly, we can't speak for the town, so we could recommend it to the Board of Selectmen. But I'd be concerned that if we just sort of passed a resolution or recommended the passage of a resolution, that might be construed as, well, Simsbury supports the carbon fee and dividend. And I think in order to do that, we would really want to engage the community in a larger discussion. So to me, the question is, do we pass it on to the Board of Selectmen? And I'll be honest, I love the cause, but I'm not sure when the Clean Energy Task Force was formed that endorsing federal legislation is something that is expected of us or even appropriate for us to do. Those are just my feelings.
Yeah, I would back you on that one, Mark. It's kind of we should work through the town. Obviously, we're doing some upfront work for the town. So I would recommend, if we're going to do anything, is to recommend to the Board of Selectmen, as you have mentioned.
I agree. Because I think that we need to stick to the local level issues and recommend it to the Board of Selectmen. And perhaps Susan, your group, I don't know, maybe you already did this, but have you done if you haven't done one, maybe do the presentation to the Board of Selectmen as well, along with our recommendation.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and we could maybe have that discussion in an open forum or later, that maybe Susan Climate Live, and I know you have done activities in the town, engage the town, and then take this to the Board of Selectmen. So what I suggest is we don't take a vote now. Let's revisit this. Hopefully we'll get Bob and Tim back at the next meeting. We can have another discussion. But if anything, we would recommend it to the Board of Selectmen, as we did with this community choice aggregation.
I
do have a question. Oh, I was just going to ask real quick though. Should this take effect, how would it impact a resident in our town? You know, the local residents, and how would it impact our town?
So that's what I wanted to actually kind of speak to a little bit. I agree with the three of you. I think if the scope of our task force is to really talk about the things that we can affect in town, maybe federal legislation is out of scope. However, I think there are aspects of a dividend that would directly impact Simsbury and the people of Simsbury, not to mention you start the entire purpose of this is to start an excise tax on carbon, right? On carbon production and fossil fuels being the leading producer of that. So if you start to do that, it excises their action. So now it's costing them more in order to continue to mine oil and drill for oil and produce other carbon emissions. And so I do think there's a direct impact. Long term, I think you can't get to sequestration of carbon or carbon drawdown absent of some legislation that penalizes carbon production and gives that as a dividend back to the people, because it's our damage that we're taking on.
Yeah. I mean, if we recommend this, you know, eventually, let's say if this does take effect, it will impact each resident at some point, somehow.
And I think the hopes of the legislation itself is it impacts the residents positively because you're excising the bad behavior of profit seeking.
Yep. I definitely love the concept. I'm just not sure it's something the Simsbury Clean Energy Task Force should be really trying to play a role in.
Yeah, I tend to agree, Mark. I think that's from my perspective, that type of discussion does make sense in a broader setting, and the Board of Selectmen I think we should loop them in if we wanted to continue down that path.
So let's unless anybody has a motion or something action they want to take, let's table this, and then let's discuss it again when we have Bob and Tim, just to get their feedback as well. So the second big item that the Citizens Climate Lobby presented to us was this idea of a climate emergency, and that, whether we do it or not, I actually feel that is very much something that would be within the responsibility or purview of the Clean Energy Task Force. I think it's an interesting concept. There were some materials we sent around. Middletown recently did this. They declared a climate emergency, and I think there's positives and negatives to it, but I would suggest that we have the discussion. So I don't know if anybody agrees or disagrees with whether we even take this one up.
I'd like to see us take it up just to discuss it a little bit more. I don't see anything wrong with it. It doesn't seem to be binding to the town, as Middletown is kind of mentioned in their statement. So it can't hurt to spend a little more time on this.
Wanted to just echo Sherry's question earlier around like what are the outcomes that come from that? Is it simple? Is it? I don't want to say simply. Is it drawing attention, or is it tied directly to some sort of funding?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I wouldn't want to. I mean, let's say we had some discussions and we said yes, Simsbury, so the Clean Energy Task Force would like to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that Simsbury declare a climate emergency. I wouldn't want that to be the end of the statement. I would want it to be also, and we recommend the following measures, policies, initiatives to address the climate crisis. So I think, put in that context, and my thinking has evolved a little bit. I've tended to shy away from just proclaiming something for the sake of proclaiming it, But I also think that it might just help focus the discussion and provide a little more framework and motivation for some activities.
Is there an opportunity to bundle those two ideas, so to speak? So if we're saying there's this climate emergency, one of the potential paths we can take would absolutely be a carbon tax and dividend. So I'm wondering, is there do we loop it in that way?
Absolutely. It could be on the action list, right? That we recommend advocating at the federal level for a carbon dividend, carbon fee, and I don't know if can I share my screen, Ray?
I can give you the ability to share your screen.
Yeah, it looks like I can. This is the, I'll just show you. This is the Middletown. I don't think I emailed this around because I just found it, but it's a typical proclamation with whereases and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and CO2 levels and droughts and famine, and so a bunch of whereases, and also touches on sort of environmental justice. Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color around the world have suffered the greatest consequences. Whereas Middletown has been designated an environmental justice community by Connecticut Department of Energy Environmental Protection. Whereas it's vital that the city of Middletown rise to the challenge of the greatest crisis in history by joining local and global efforts to transition to a socially just economy. Now be it therefore resolved that the Common Council, that's like their Board of Selectmen, declares a climate emergency. Be it further resolved that it provide the foundation upon which the city of Middletown will develop priorities, legislation, policies, planned budgets. The Common Council will work with the mayor to establish an emergency mobilization effort. So, there's detailed wording that we can look at, and I think other towns, other cities have done this.
I would like to also, I'd be curious to hear Tom's point of view, Tom Roy, because this, as a town, this would certainly impact the Department of Public Works.
Yeah. I think we need to do a little homework, right? This is not something I'd want to just kind of do a search and replace Middletown for Simsbury and then get it up there. We really want to think through what is the message we want to give, and then what is the palette of actions that we want to take. So I would be interested. I would say let's. I can email. I'll send that around. There were, I think, in one of the emails, there were a couple of articles about. I think 2 articles about Middletown. So I would encourage us to do a little homework, to look at maybe even what other cities and towns have done this, what kind of wording they used, and I don't think we want to rush into it, but I'm very open to the idea of possibly proposing of recommending that we declare a climate emergency to give greater urgency to to measures that we need to take in town. But I think we want to list some of those measures when we do that. So I don't think we need a vote on that either. That was kind of a wishy-washy. Kick the can down
Well,
the
we'll
road.
table. Yeah, we'll continue the discussion.
Yeah.
At the next meeting, along with the carbon dividends.
Yep. Because I think it's kind of it's getting harder and harder to look away from what is clearly a climate emergency these days, right? I mean, I say my thinking has evolved a little bit. So again, thank you, Susan, and to your colleagues for putting these issues on the radar for us. So our next agenda item is a residential efficiency campaign. And the residential efficiency audits are, as you probably know, are called the Home Energy Solutions Program, HES or HES audits. And they're a standard offering. We all pay for them through our electric bills. These ratepayer funds go into these efficiency fund, and they heavily subsidize these audits. And recently, we learned that the copay for these audits is now zero. It's fluctuated around, and it's very dependent on what type of fuel you use. It was $75, I think, but I think because of COVID and a lot of funds not being used, they are now zero. So I think at least Sherry and I don't know if anybody others, attended a webinar recently on the Home Energy Solutions Program, and in particular, how to run a campaign in your town to promote this. Because the copay is zero. Apparently the incentive, the rebates for insulation are insanely good. So it really is worthwhile for people to, there's really no reason not to get a Home Energy Solutions audit. I think I sent around a link to either YouTube or to the PACE website of a really good presentation by a fellow named Kenny Foscue. He's the chair of the Clean Energy Task Force in North Haven. And he ran a campaign in 2014. They got 500 people to do audits. They picked a local charity. So it's kind of like our Solarize campaign, for any of you who remember that, where we picked an installer, and we ran all these events and mailing and testimonials and yard signs. So it was kind of a buzz around town, and there was a deadline and we got 84 people to get solar out of that. So it would be similar to that, where in North Haven, what they did was they picked actually 2 installers. Those installers agreed for everybody who gets an audit done, the installer would donate $25 to a local charity. And they ended up giving that charity over $12,000. So I don't know if, I think given that the incentives are so good, now we only know they're that good through the end of the year, but we don't know what'll happen next year. And even if they go back up somewhat, there's still an incredible value. The value, when they do an audit, they do a blower door test, they'll do weather stripping, they'll replace light bulbs, they'll replace shower heads, and then they'll give you this book of essentially coupons for rebates. So I think I've heard the value of an audit is over $700. So even if the rebates and incentives go back up, or the price goes back up, I think we should consider doing a campaign in Simsbury in some form to promote these.
Well, I agree. And I also wanted to just mention that Mark, after our discussion about this last week, we have committed to doing at least one presentation in October with Simsbury Television. It doesn't necessarily have to be a live, but just to, Mark, to let you know, SCTV is open. And so if you wanted to do that live panel there, you could do that. Or we could have a Zoom meeting for a panel discussion and record it, and then we can send in 2 or 3 Zoom recordings, and then they'll splice them together to create the full presentation. So, so either way is an option. And then I think as far as the charities, I mean, there are a number of charities in Simsbury, but one of the ones I think was, was it Community Choice? Does that have a charity, and also this the healing meals, or the shelter, the meals that Bob Krauther's involved with? There's another one that we could set up as a charity.
Yeah, I mean, the campaign could be as little as a show on Simsbury Community TV, maybe one or two other events. So it could be kind of a light campaign. The version that Kenny Foscue did in North Haven had a couple of features. One is, again, they selected 2 installers, so they had to do a little homework and make sure that they were getting reliable installers who were willing to donate to a local charity for each audit that was done. They worked with their utility, and they're a United Illuminating town, not an Eversource town. And the utility set up a code. So they did a letter, and it had the town seal on it. Went to everybody in town, and it talked about how great the HES audits are, and it had the number you call, and then it said when you call, be sure to give them this code, because that code would make sure you went to one of the 2 installers, and it would also keep track of the campaign. So we are not a United Illuminating town. We are an Eversource town. And I did reach out to Eversource this week and had a conversation just the other day with somebody who ministers the Home Energy Solutions audits, the Home Energy Solutions program. And unlike United Illuminating, Eversource sort of shut down a lot of their efficiency activities, what you refer to as the Clean Communities campaign. So Eversource isn't sure they can support us the way United Illuminating does their towns. So I'm waiting to hear on that. But hopefully they can do the same thing, basically get us a code, and we could draft a letter. If you go through this presentation from Kenny Foscue, it's great because it's all in there, right? He talks about what they did. There's a sample of a letter. There's a flyer with testimonials. There's even a picture of yard signs. So I think if we can get Eversource to support us, then we might do a little more robust campaign like the one they did there, where we pick an installer, name a charity, and really try to not just kind of get the word out, but really get a buzz going and get a couple hundred people to do this.
Mark, am I allowed to ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So do we know, these clean energy audits have been around forever. Do we know why people haven't participated in them before? Is there some barrier or reason? Because are they new to town? Have they recently bought a home? Is there something that we can identify within this cohort of people who haven't had one where your presentation material could better target them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't really know the answer, but I've always had this feeling that the people are leaving money on the table. These are really valuable. They're almost free. They are free now, but they have been almost free. I think it's just people don't know. People don't, they don't out of the blue sort of just decide to do it. Sometimes when you're doing certain things, like if you're getting solar, you have to get an audit, right? Because if you want to get any kind of incentive. So there's certain times people think about doing it or have to do it. But other than that, I just don't think it's on people's radar.
So that's the power there of the campaign and trying to get that back onto people's radar. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the fact that it's free now as well, whereas it used to cost money.
Right.
So I think what we're going to do at the very least is put together an October TV program for Simsbury Community TV. And we've got a couple, some of the people at this webinar we might be able to get one of the people from United Illuminating who or maybe this woman from Eversource to kind of talk about the incentives, and then just make sure people are aware about the campaign. I know in the North Haven with Kenny Foscue, they had their first selectman get an audit, and they filmed it and put it on local TV. I was emailing with Eric Wellman, and he had an audit done before, but I think you have to have 3 years to do another one. So if it's been 3 years, he might be willing to do that, or one of us might do an audit and get it filmed. Because I know one of the concerns is these types of services were shut down for a while, but as they made clear in the webinar, they are back in business and they're following all kinds of safety protocols. So if anyone would like to be involved in kind of planning this thing, at first it's a matter of just planning this Simsbury Community TV event. But if we can get support from Eversource, then we'd like to also plan a more complete campaign. If anybody else would like to, be a part of that, let me know.
For the panel, we were discussing to have someone from Eversource, maybe Eric and yourself, right, on the panel, correct? So I think it's just a matter of, because we've got the recordings of Kenny, and we discussed using Kenny's recording
Maybe
possibly Lorenzo's.
Yep.
Or someone else's, but it's there.
Yep.
With just excluding the panel discussion, which I think
Yeah.
would be really a good way to just introduce the program.
I think at least this first one, I don't think there's going to be a tremendous amount of work. I think, because there's just so much basic information that people don't have. So we want to start by getting that out.
You had mentioned also to send out a flyer, right, to the residents.
Right. Or a letter.
Yep.
They sent out like 7,000, I believe, in North Haven.
Yeah. And we did that for Solarize. We did that for Small Business Energy Advantage a couple of years ago. Similar thing where we picked two installers, two contractors, and then approached the small business community. So I think these things can have an impact.
Okay. So we need to kind of, I guess, determine a date to do the panel. If you want to do it as a Zoom recording, and then whatever recordings are currently available, get them into SCTV.
Yeah.
And put the flyer together with the HES information.
I've got another call with this woman from Eversource. She actually lives in Simsbury. Her name is Tammy Wilson. So she works for Eversource, and she administers the HES program. I've got a call with her Friday, October 2nd. So I wonder, she might be willing to be on the panel. If not, there are other people we could get. But so I think we'll take the planning for that offline. But again, if anybody would like to be involved, let us know. Okay. Another topic that I think we've talked about on and off, but I think it's kind of coming into sharper focus, and that is recommending that the town budget for at least a part-time or an energy manager as a consultant. Tom Roy is amazing, all he gets done, and he is effectively our energy manager. He's gone through the training and certification for that, but he's also got a million other things on his plate. And he himself is supportive of the idea of an energy manager. I know West Hartford has a part-time energy manager, and she lives in Simsbury. Her name is Catherine Davini, and I've heard her present multiple times. And the type of activities that she's engaged in have more than paid her salary, I think, right? The types of grants and efficiency savings and performance bonding in solar. So I think in this budget, environment, it's probably not realistic to ask for an actual position. And I think Tom's recommendation was that we asked for a budget for an energy manager consultant. And the time to do that would be December, but I think that would be somebody who sort of could work with us, and a lot of these things that we try to get done, and some of the things that we haven't even been able to move along, whether it's solar on the landfill or energy upgrades or better benchmarking of energy use in town buildings. There's a whole, we could put together a list of activities that I think would be really effective. So just wanted to throw that out and see if anybody has any feedback or discussion. But I think what we'd like to do is in December be ready to recommend that the town budget for at least a consultant role for an energy manager.
Mark, would you be putting together a presentation for the Board of Selectmen on that?
Yeah, we'll talk.
Or sending a letter?
Yeah, we'll talk to Tom about how to do that. But I think we're in time. It sounds like from him that if we can get something together, we have the advantage of. I think we already have a job description from the West Hartford position, and so I think we put something together.
Good.
So the next agenda item is outreach for the town energy plan. And this may be just for the benefit of Phil and Katie. I think, Phil, I sent this to you. I don't know that I did to you, Katie, but I'm happy to. About a year ago, we drafted an energy plan, and it kind of goes through different categories of activities like heating and cooling, and energy efficiency is one, and renewables and microgrids, transportation, and it lists a bunch of potential activities, and it has a list of actions that we intend to take, both in a 1-year and a 5-year plan. And then we got around and we started presenting that. We went to the Board of Selectmen with it. It got approved, got voted out of the Clean Energy Task Force. It actually got us points for Sustainable Connecticut. And then we went to the Board of Selectmen with it and said, we have this plan. It's a draft. Our reason for being here is not to go through every line of the thing with you now, but to just that we have this, and now we want to get stakeholder input. So we have been going around to various groups, and that honestly that's quieted down partly because of COVID, and so I guess a couple things on the energy plan. One is I'd like to try to engage more groups. We talked about the PTOs. I think would be a great one, is to go around and get their input. And the other thing is, I think we should take it is now, I think, a good year old. And actually, we have goals for 2020. We may have done a few of them, but now let's maybe sort of turn the page on it and set it up as a let's take a look at it, the whole thing. What still is relevant? Are there things that we already did we can take off, and then with an eye of what's our 1-year and our 5-year plan, our 1-year plan being what we want to do in 2021. So I think we know a little bit more than we did when we drafted the thing. So what I would suggest is we'll send the draft around to everybody, and let's plan to do those two things. Let's plan to engage PTO if there's any other groups that you think we should get to, and then let's revise the thing and have a 2021 version. So I will follow up by sending that around, folks. that could kind of go along with, if we do decide to declare a climate emergency, that that we list some of the actions in the plan. That here's what we really want the town to do, and be a little bit more ambitious in some of the things that we're asking. We're not going to get everything, but I think you have to ask to get things sort of on the table. So I think that is that's all we had on our agenda. Does anybody have any other? Oh, did I skip? I skipped sustainable CT. I'm sorry. Look, I jumped right over that. Cheryl, we're out of order. But do you want to give us a little update on sustainable CT?
I actually just noticed it myself. I was like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to give some update here.
And just as background, Sherry led our effort to get certified with sustainable CT. We were one of not many towns that get to silver, which is the highest level you can get, the first year we did it. The Sustainable Simsbury team is sort of reports through the Clean Energy Task Force, and Sherry leads that. So over to you, Sherry.
So I guess just to update from our past meeting, which was excellent, we had Jess LeClaire, who is with Sustainable CT, join us. She had asked if we would be willing to review their proposed changes for 2021 and to also provide feedback based on our experience with the certification process back in 2019. And so, we went kind of a step through each individual action and sub-action and what was new, what was revised, what was being moved, and just, provided an update. And we gave her our feedback, and we're continuing to do so. And it was really good. It was just good on both sides. It was great for them, but it was also really good for us. To kind of see up front what's happening in terms of these changes, and also to kind of help get us, organized in terms of where we go next. And so the thinking now is to maybe just start diving into the actions again to get ramped up for certification, because we only have 2 years left now. And we could even certify again next year if we wanted to. We don't have to wait for the 3 years. So we'll see, what the team wants to do when we have our next meeting. And I think that's it.
Yeah, Sherry and Tom and I presented to the Board of Selectmen a week or two ago. And the board really...
right, yeah.
Really the first time you had gone back to the board, right? I think since the whole thing started. And
right.
It was good. They were very attentive, and I think it was very well received.
Yep, I agree. And I forgot about that part. The SCT requires that we meet with the Board of Selectmen within, the year, at least once a year. So we had provided a report, which was a summary of our activities in 2019. We provided that in February of 2020. And we were scheduled to present in May the goals of the committee, but because of the shutdown, we were not able to do that. So that's what the presentation was last week, and that was to present the goals of the committee.
Great. So any questions on that? Or next is other business or open forum. So really anything else on anybody's mind? Any questions or any other things we should be doing?
Mark, I just wanted to mention that when you declare the climate emergency, and I only saw the Middletown one quickly, that perhaps we include more detail around what a climate emergency looks like locally. So it's very hard for people to abstract their way to places they don't live. And, you know, at that point, those are just words on the page. But if you understand how it impacts your day to day and what your day to day could look like in a climate emergency as it, you know, progresses, I find that to be more impactful to people who are living their day to day. So I was just curious if that could be worked in along with, you know, our next steps or along those lines.
I think that's a great suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, and, you know, maybe one of the films or that we, you know, as part of the campaign, we could do a film or something to that effect about what a climate emergency looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, we did show Paris to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't. One of the other committees, I think it was, right, that showed Paris to Pittsburgh last year, which was excellent. So something on that level.
I know one, since we're just in other business, one topic that got a few emails this week is there is some potential training going on right now for municipal EV readiness or municipal electric vehicle readiness. Because you know one of the parts of a transition to a clean energy economy is you know, getting rid of our gas cars and replacing them with electric vehicles. And as the selection improves and the prices come down, there are things towns can do to make it easier for people to you know, to own electric vehicles, whether it's charging infrastructure or any kind of tax or other kind of, you know, favorable treatment. So there's this group, Live Green, and they're doing this training. And so there was an email, and if anybody's interested, they've got, I forget how many. I think maybe as many as 12. Is it 12? So they got a lot of sessions. They're weekly at Thursday for an hour. I've done training with this group before, and they're very good. So I would encourage you, if you're even a little interested and have any free time on a Thursday afternoon, to register and then just do one or two of them. Because I think a lot of them, you know, they're all different topics. And I think one of our action items in our energy plan was to assess our electric vehicle charging infrastructure in town and put together a plan. And I know this group, Live Green, they did a big EV readiness study for Fairfield, so they know what they're doing. And that maybe, you know, that's the type of activity somebody could say, yeah, let's do an assessment and think ahead a little bit of what kind of things can we do in town to make it easier for people to transition to electric vehicles. You know,
Is there the training? It's for like town staff and municipal members, right? So it would be like, you know, Tom and Ray or the enrollment task force,
right?
Facilities enrollment task force for those
Absolutely.
folks, right?
Yep.
So are they aware of this?
Wait, did I copy you on that
Presentation?
email?
I don't think so. There's another one we get from the state that has something about that, but the one you're talking about, I don't think I've seen it.
I will send that one around. They did some over the past few months on electric school buses, and I attended all those. I think Mike attended some of those as well, and that issue is not dead. There is this Volkswagen settlement fund that, you know, when Volkswagen got caught cheating with the diesels and they had to pay this big fine, and a lot of money got established in these funds, and it went to the states, and Connecticut got something like 50 million. And I think they're now in the third round of funding, and they have been, from what I hear, they've been disappointed that the first two rounds did not have more proposals for electric vehicles. There were a lot of diesel buses, clean diesel buses that got funded with this. So they really want to see more electric proposals. So we have been trying to put together a proposal from Simsbury to get an electric school bus. And I recently reached out to just kind of, because the third round hasn't started, so it's not too late. But so far we haven't been able to move forward on that. But the way this group works, there's all kinds of, there's a laundry list of activities that we could be doing, and things happen when somebody just steps forward and says, "I'm going to sort of take the lead on this one." So, any other discussion? Any other items? Business? So
no, I don't have anything.
On a couple of these items, the municipal EV training and the efficiency campaign and the climate emergency, and let's stay in touch, and we'll take all these forward at our next meeting. Is there a?
Is this now? Was that supposed to be part of the open forum, or was that part of other business?
What do you think, Mike? Open forum?
Yeah, it's open forum usually.
I mean, the municipal EV readiness is other business, I think.
Okay.
Oh, look who's here.
Right, I'm just, yeah. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
We see you.
Hello, you see me? I see you. Sorry about that.
It's all right. You caught us just in time. We were just about to adjourn.
Okay, nice seeing you. Bye.
Well, I was asking just because I wanted to see if maybe Susan wanted to comment on some of what we were discussing earlier.
Yeah, and Bob, just by introduction, I don't know if you know Phil Perciello, Bob Beinstein.
Not personally, but
Hey, Bob, how are
one
you?
of the reasons I logged in. I didn't want to completely ditch you.
Right. So Phil is a member, and then Katie Majori has joined us as a guest.
Hello, Katie.
And you know Susan Olson.
Well, I do know Susan also.
Yeah.
We had a lovely conversation earlier. Was it last week, right?
All right. So we're an open forum. Anybody can talk.
Susan?
So, just to contribute to the conversation, there is a climate emergency toolkit that Roger put together. It's like, it has like a lot of content. It talks about the process of crafting a climate emergency, and also examples. It has Middletown, it has New Haven, it has New York City, and then it has like some of the implementations, like what it led to and funding of it. So it's a document of about 35 pages online. It's a living document. It's being updated constantly, but it could help to inform the conversation. So,
Great.
I mean, Bob has seen it, at least in the early iteration, and perhaps you all would want to look at it.
Is there a later iteration, Susan?
Yeah, they added a table of contents and I think tweaked some other stuff. Yeah.
Do you want to send that to Mark? And Mark, you could share it with all of us, or I'll be happy to do that.
Okay,
That would be excellent.
cool.
Did you guys make a decision on anything? I don't want to rehash the whole meeting because everybody probably wants to go home, but
No.
We really didn't make any decisions, but on the issue of the carbon fee and dividend, we love the idea, love the concept, but didn't feel it's necessarily our place to play a role in that one as a town. It's possible it could be one of the recommendations that we make that we advocate at the federal level for this, but we just don't feel that's sort of what we were formed to do. Whereas the climate emergency, we're not committing to making a declaration, but that seems very much like something we should talk about.
yeah, that's in our wheelhouse. I agree. I couldn't agree more, Mark, on both counts.
And if
Thanks.
we do it, we want to really customize it and not just issue a proclamation, but then also have a bit of an action plan. Like here's what we need to do about it.
Well, I will say, and I know the discussion list is closed at this point, but it's open forum. I think one of the things that I saw come out of what Sherry did and you did with Sustainable CT was that dialogue. And we talked about this when we entered Sustainable CT, is if we can get people talking about these topics, right? If we can move forward and use the process of becoming a Sustainable CT city to foster that dialogue, it matters, right? And then we get people talking in the same language, common vocabulary. So I think that if we do advocate for a climate emergency, and if the Board of Selectmen is amenable to that, there's a real opportunity to reach out to some of those same groups that you've already been engaged with to talk about what are the right actions to come out of this for Simsbury. What can Simsbury do to help address climate emergency, that kind of thing. And then, the whole concept of funding and fiscal benefit and fiscal costs get rolled into that, right? So we're not going to the Board of Selectmen and saying, hey, we want you to spend a whole shitload of money to this, pardon my expression, but we want you to spend a whole bunch of money on this for no gain.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's all sort of look around. Susan, if you can send that toolkit to me, I'll forward that around. And I just started, I was looking for it, and all kinds of things come up on the internet. So let's look at what other towns and cities have done, and give it a serious discussion.
Sounds good.
And then briefly, Bob, on this an efficiency campaign. The Home Energy Solutions audits are free now. There's no copay. The incentives for insulation are insanely good. That's only through the end of the year that we know of. So we're looking to do some kind of a campaign to promote HES audits locally, starting with a Simsbury Community TV panel next month, and hopefully a bit more of an organized campaign with a select, kind of like what we did for Small Business Energy Advantage, where we select an installer. They donate to a local charity for every audit that they do, and but we can't do that without some support from Eversource. So we're waiting on that right now.
Cool. Yeah. Again, completely agree.
I was wondering if running that campaign, organizing it, if that's something that would interest Phil. I mean, I know it's your first meeting, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but you were mentioning that you have a communications
I was
background,
thinking through
and that's why I was thinking.
Yeah, I'd absolutely like to be engaged and involved. I think there's so much potential, even beyond just traditional platforms, mail, Simsbury TV. I think that there's a wealth of potential on social that we should be tapping into across platforms, especially particularly where new homeowners reside. Where you interact with new homeowners. I think that's potential low-hanging fruit for people who would like to leverage this program. And so, I'd absolutely like to be involved. I'm certainly, I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, so I'm a little overextended, but I'd like to.
By definition.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's
Great.
Definitely within my wheelhouse.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Nice cast, Jerry.
Yeah.
And Bob, the other thing, just briefly, we've talked about this in the past, but I think it's percolating to where we want to actually do it, and that is recommend that the town engage an energy manager.
Oh, yeah.
Not necessarily a full-time position or even a part-time position, but maybe a consulting budget for somebody to, because there's just so many actions that we could give this person that would more than pay for what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even a retainer of so many hours a month or something like that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
performance based. We talked to Tom about that.
Yeah, we talked to Tom. That was his suggestion is a consultant function, and the time to do that would be December. So we're going to try and get something into the next budget round.
All right, cool. Yeah, you don't have to rehash the whole meeting for me. I mean,
Yeah,
I
no,
got
those were the high
Katie
points.
here. Katie, are you a prospective member? Are you a visitor, or what's the deal here?
I would say prospective member at some point, but very interested in the conversation, and we'll continue to listen in.
Cool. Good deal.
And Katie's got a second and a sixth grader, if I remember correctly. We may try to do a little outreach together to the PTOs on an energy plan.
Good.
Yeah, whatever ways the schools can either engage via their curriculum or through their infrastructure, I think it would be interesting.
Yep. All right.
It's
Any
a
other?
generational shift, man. We got to get those kids on board.
No.
Yeah.
They got to get us on board.
Don't even get me started.
Terrific. All right. Well, great to see everybody.
Nice
Thanks,
to meet
Doug.
everyone.
Yes. Great to meet
Oh,
you.
wait, do we need to make a, or we're not voting? Do we need to make a
We
motion?
have to make a motion.
Yep.
Yeah, a motion to, all right, I'll make a motion to close.
Since I'm not chair, and I second it.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Opposed? All right.
okay.
Thanks, folks. Take care.
Hey, nice seeing
Night.
you all.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.